Oh my gosh, we are live. This is LinkedIn Procurement Community, and it's the greatest show online in America. Yep. My name is Jonathan Geyer. My special guest is Randy Wimmer. Real quick intro, and then we're going to dive into it. Randy and I were talking about this just before I clicked the live button, and we're going to dive into set-asides. It's going to be awesome. Okay, my name is Jonathan Geyer. I helped implement a health information exchange for the state of Minnesota. And in that opportunity, I'm going to bring this up every webinar I do. In that opportunity, I was able to sit down and drink a cup of coffee with 30 some odd thousand veterans. That is important because it shapes how I think. It shapes how I talk. It's gonna play a significant role in how I speak to Randal today, right now. Awesome. That's my spiel. Oh, and I also coach boxing. That similarly, that is significant to how I talk. I coach people. I help build people up. It is intuitive for me. It's natural. That is also going to come out in these webinars. I want people to succeed. I will help you succeed every way I can. Randy, you're up.
Jonathan punches people. So let's translation. So a little bit about me. I served 10 years on active duty in the Navy, and I got out in late 2000, early 2001, and I became a billable contractor. And I started having a whole bunch of kids too, and it hit me all of a sudden. I'm standing in line at my local giant grocery store, and I've got multiple packs of Love's diapers in my arms, and they're all in different sizes. Like I got all kinds of kids, and they're all still in diapers. And it hit me then that, I needed to change something about my life in order to be able to provide for my family better, because man, I was just treading water. And I know most of America, they're fortunate if they're treading water. A lot of us aren't. And I totally get that. I was actually, raised in a very, very, very poor area of Virginia, in the Appalachian Trail in southwestern Virginia, and there was a lot of people who didn't always tread water. They would go under, and very poor area. So I get it, but I'm standing in line in my local giant grocery store, and I'm thinking, man, I'm barely making ends meet. How am I going to be able to really take care of my family the way I want to? And I decided I needed to do something about it, and I launched a federal government contracting company. Well, fast forward 8 years before I really started having success. There was a whole bunch of landmines that I stepped on. There was a whole lot of pain and misery that I went through, and a whole lot of hard-learned lessons that I obtained during that 8-year journey to launch to start having success in the federal government contracting industry. And once I did, within 3 years, I'd won nearly $400 million in contracts for my small business, my first one. And then I went on, I sold that one for 8 figures, and I went on to sell a couple more companies. So in 2020, I cleared all my non-competes, and I wanted to do something to give back to the community. So I launched Government Contracting Academy, a social impact company, to kind of give back. It does charge money because I wanted to keep it going. I want to keep it viable. I want to be able to turn it over to somebody when I'm unable to do it, and tell them that they have to eat ramen 3 times a day in order to be able to give back to the community. So it's a social impact company. We do, it is revenue generating. However, the primary, point of it is to help out the community. So that's what I do. I do the Government Contracting Academy thing, and my primary goal is to help people alleviate 8 years of pain and suffering trying to figure out how to do business with the federal government contracting industry, because it is the absolute best industry in the world, especially for first-time entrepreneurs. It really is.
Oh my gosh, this just popped into my head right now, and we did say we're going to discuss our topic today is our theme for today is going to be the set-asides, right? That's
right. Small business set-aside program.
Well, maybe before we ease into that, what is our goal? Or I'm setting the stage here. I'm setting this up. What is our goal overall for these meetings? And I'm asking the question, but it's loaded. I already got the answer. This is to get people that are on the ledge, to get people that are already thinking about, they've considered it, they've imagined the possibility of becoming a government contractor. What we're trying to, speaking of coaching, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get you off the ledge. We're trying to get you into the ring. You know, that first step. Oh, Peter Dell, from 0 to 1. We're trying to take you from nothing to that first step of something. And that's where Randy's able to provide just a ton of value. And I'm speaking, this is a case study, I suppose, because I've been in Randy's group, and Randy's communication style made all the difference in the world for me. It is unique. It is not like everybody else. The way Randy describes this information, kind of like an encyclopedia, anybody can read it. But if you're in the right frame of mind, certain words, maybe that's too complicated of a description. His communication style did the trick for me, and high probability I am banking on that doing the trick for others. It is important. And I'm grateful to get to know you, and I'm hoping to spread that.
Absolutely,
with others.
Yeah. But my answer to why we're doing this, and this is kind of like you beat this into my head and convinced me to do this. There really is a decline in federal government contracting right now, and that hurts our country. That just what it does is it deteriorates the pillars of the strength of our country. You know, we go back in time, and I use this all the time as a description. Rosie the Riveter was a hero. We looked at Rosie the Riveter, you know, popping those rivets, you know, into these fighter jets, or not fighter jets, but, you know, bombers and you know, fighter planes during World War II, who we thought, wow, what an American hero. She is actually helping our government. You know, fast forward a little bit to the Cold War. There was John F. Kennedy who said, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Gave an ambitious goal to put a man on the moon. And you know who put a man on the moon? It wasn't NASA. It was not NASA. NASA did not build a single rocket. It was industry. Industry built it. Everything that our government does, it does through our industrial base, through government contracts. The government does very little. It outsources everything. And, you know, it's that industrial base that keeps us strong. Again, during World War II, you know, the Department of Navy didn't build a single ship, but yet at the end of World War II, we had a 2-to-1 advantage over the rest of the entire world combined, you know, in our fleet size. Wasn't the Navy who built those ships. The Navy, the personnel, the sailors manned and fought those ships, but they didn't build them. That's part of the equation that is being forgotten today. We all love veterans.
We need that multiple.
Yeah, we all love veterans. We all acknowledge what veterans do for our country, you know, the active duty military. But somehow or another, we have, you know, almost, vilified what the other part of that equation is, the industrial base, giving them the tools that they need. And I'm not talking about just the military. I'm talking about every single branch of the government. You want to make advances in education? Boom. You know, you could set policy. Policy is really important, but that's only half the equation. What are the tools that are out there and available? What if we put a Wi-Fi enabled computer at every single kid's bedroom so they can learn through the internet? You know, if you really want to affect positive change, you really have to use the second part of that equation at least as much and frequently a lot more than the policy side. And that gives us the ability to do things. So, you know, I don't want to gloss over that, you know, that fact that our country needs this. And somehow or another, we have, you know, like I said, we've turned all government contractors into villains. And that is why there's such a rapid decline in the number of government contracting, you know, companies out there. That is why the number of bids per solicitation continues to decline. Now, that screams opportunity also. So now you have less competition. And it's never been a better time. We have increased spending and we have less competition and more focus on small businesses than ever in our country's life. So, you know, now is the time to do it. And what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to get that good news story out there to people who are on the fence. It's not a dirty job. You're helping out your country. You're helping out the leader of the free world. You're helping out your communities by being a government contracting company. And again, somehow or another, I don't want to sound cheesy and start humming the Star Spangled Banner in the background here, but
Right.
It just sickens me that somehow or another society has started painting this arm of industry in our nation that has really buttressed every single thing that we've done as a nation. And now they're making it seem like it's a dirty occupation. It's a dirty market space when it really isn't. Of course, there's bad apples in every industry, but usually everybody hears about those toilet seats that cost $600. Oh, those government contractors are ripping it off. You know what? Pull the string on most of those is because of a very poorly written procurement, where that procurement said that they had to be tested up to 50 G's and all this a force and all these different things. It was a poorly written solicitation, and all they had to do was respond to it. That's all the government contractors could do. They can say, if you want all that extra testing, it's going to cost. And what that costs are reflected in the price. Most of those are not people being very dirty. It's usually because of bad procurement, but nobody ever talks about that. They always talk about those beltway bandits. So anyway, I'm hoping to set the record straight a little bit and to encourage people to do what I consider to be jump into one of the most noble industries going, and that's supporting your country.
Oh my gosh. Walking backwards through my experience joining this, and going down to the elemental level, why does the government need to hire people? Like, why doesn't the government do them themselves? And, as I'm winging this as we go, as I'm thinking of this, I want to say the original, maybe 1700s, early 1800s, the buildup of the Navy, that's standing out in my mind too, right? Because didn't we dissolve our Navy after the War of Independence? And then we had to build it back
pretty
up.
much, yeah. We as a nation, up until the post World War II, we always let our military decline to almost non-existence because we have the luxury of having two oceans and friendly neighbors.
I'm worried about that now. Like that's
now we're in a global environment where we can be threatened. We can be threatened across that ocean now. Ballistic missiles, all of these kind of things. Cyber. Oh my gosh, you could have state sponsored people working out of their basement, and they could be attacking our national infrastructure through cyber attacks. So exactly. We are more vulnerable now than what we've ever been, and that's just national security wise. Let's get back into the regular government functions. Right. There's so much inefficiency in our government right now, and we're paying for that inefficiency. I'm not going to get political or anything like that, but I would probably say that there have been people who've said that there's up to 25% inefficiency in our government. So what happens if we carved away that inefficiency through better technology, better service, better whatever, and now all of a sudden the cost just lowered. Your tax bill just lowered by 25%. Wow, wouldn't that be a great thing? You know what I mean? So it's just not all military and veterans and all that good stuff. It's support to our communities. It's making things better. It's lowering taxes. It's providing better services to the people who need it. And so I'm really excited by what we're doing or what we're trying to do, and because there's a void out there. And sharing this information. The government, they have a lot of free programs that they'll teach you how to do the paperwork. The most common one is called PTAC, Procurement Technical. I don't even know what it is, what it stands for, but every small business owner, every aspiring entrepreneur goes through that. They try to get services from that, and I encourage you to do that. All you got to do is just Google PTAC, and you'll learn about the program. However, it's not going to teach you how to launch a company. It's going to teach you how to do paperwork. These are the forms that need to be completed in order to be a legal business entity. Yeah, okay.
They're hard to read.
I know. I can make you a legal business entity, but that doesn't mean you're going to make any money. Hell, you can spend $100 and become a limited liability company in the state of Virginia or Commonwealth of Virginia. That's not going to make any revenue for you. You know what I mean? That's just doing the paperwork. So lots of programs out there from the government's perspective to teach you how to do paperwork, but not from the business person's perspective, not from the entrepreneur's perspective about this industry or about how to actually launch a successful company in this industry, which is the more important thing.
Oh my gosh. I thought I was active listening, but a thought that popped into my head. One of the, not to get political, but I heard Donald Trump on the Lex Friedman podcast a little bit ago, and he was talking, you and I talked about this a little bit ago, Randy. But Donald Trump was talking about the barrier to entry and being public or public speaking as a barrier to entry. Like most people are uncomfortable being in front of a camera. And this information, what we are doing, this webinar, it touches on that. It aligns with that statement here. We are talking in a way, in a easy to digest kind of way that most people don't. Most in this space, there's a reason there's not other webinars like this out there, right? And it's because it's kind of scary to do, and it's kind of odd. It's we are crossing that.
Nobody in the government can do this. And the reason why is because this is what the information we're going to share so politically incorrect at times is, they could never do that. They'd lose their job because those are the things you need to know, in order to be successful. You need to know how the industry is really played, how to really win contracts.
Prioritize understanding.
You gotta understand it. So the deal is the government people can't do it. Aspiring entrepreneurs can't pay for it, for the most part. So the only people who can pay are the big companies, and they don't need it. So, there's no incentive for people to go out and create this type of community. There really isn't. Not unless they've got a bug up their rear end where they got this personal motivation to do it. And I think that is why I think this is going to be somewhat unique because, again, there's no monetary motivation to do this. It's a free community. We're being politically incorrect. We're not trying to advance our government career because we're not in government. We're not. There's no need to do it if you're a big business executive. Again, there's just no need to do it. And then to do it for free, I think kind of validates the motivation here. So, like I said, I think information is the biggest tool that we have in order to energize people to get into the federal government contracting industry because it sells itself. It really does. It is by far the best industry for first-time entrepreneurs, especially. And the reason why I say that is because if you wanted to get into the automotive industry, or if you wanted to get into the finance industry, if you wanted to get into the technology industry, all these different types of industries, go to Harvard go to Harvard Business School, go to Chicago Booth, go to MIT Sloan. You could go to all these elite MBA programs. And do you know how much, and if you want to get ahead in those industries, those degrees will get you in the front door big time, because it really sets you up for success in those industries. However, do you know what those high-priced, prestigious degrees get you in the government contracting industry? Maybe about that much. And the reason why is because it's so different. No MBA program that I'm aware of, and I've researched this, at length, even scratches the surface of doing business with the world's largest customer, the federal government. There is no close second. The U.S. federal government is by far the world's largest customer, and you got to drop way down before you find the second place. And yet, there's not a single MBA program that focuses on how to do business in the federal government. So, in Government Contracting Academy, I've got Harvard MBAs, I got MIT graduates, Columbia. I got, it's like the who's who in the MBA, the top tier MBA programs. And then I also have, normal people. And then I also have people who, never went to college. And you know what? They all start Government Contracting Academy with the same level of knowledge with respect to federal government contracting industry. Zero. So this is the great equalizer, because if you learn about this much specialized information about this industry, you are just literally heads and shoulders above everybody else, even if they went to Harvard Business School.
And that's what we're doing here. That's what you're offering.
That is what
you're offering,
and that's what we're doing
nerve.
here. So we're providing that free content. We're providing, these insider tips, trying to be as politically incorrect as possible when needed to be, because being politically correct doesn't help anybody. You gotta, and I promise to give you my unvarnished, access to my mistakes. Am I embarrassed by something? Absolutely. But if a little bit of my embarrassment helps somebody else, avoid those same mistakes that are pretty common, then, I feel better about, that I didn't make those mistakes for nothing. So that's kind of what we're doing. And we're going to try to walk this thing through, topic by topic. We don't want it to be a duplicate of the same information as the last time. The last two sessions, we kind of set the foundation of what we're going to be talking about, the federal government. Yeah, but now I'm hoping that what we can do is talk a little bit deeper about one of the best aspects of the federal government contracting industry, and that is the small business set aside program.
Nice.
So can I share my screen there, Jonathan?
Yes, sir. We got 9 minutes left. Just for the audience, we had a few people watching.
9 minutes.
Yeah, yes, sir. Going forward, like you just said, we spent these first 3 episodes kind of scoping it out. And I put all the recordings everywhere on social.
Is it 9 minutes or is it 39?
9. Yeah, 9 minutes.
Oh, it's at 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh, no, this is an hour long. Oh,
that's right.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I was off.
Whatever. Oh man. Okay. I know. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Since I just deviated, I'm going to speak to another thing. In my previous companies, I described confusion as negativity. If you're confused, you're negative, right? And why doesn't America have a bunch of, why is our American industrial base declining? High probability it's confusing. Why? Because working for the government involves a bunch of paperwork. And you just spoke to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Government employees can't describe things on the simple blue collar level, right? And it's legally obligated to be confusing, complicated. We're touching on that. Randy has digested that information and he's going to output it on a way that is less confusing than anywhere else. This webinar doesn't exist anywhere else. That is a big deal. That is a big deal. That is a key value add here.
Okay, but Jonathan, you just tapped on something. Before I start talking a little bit about small business set aside industry, I in 2003 I decided I needed to launch a company. Like I said, I just told you my story about being in the giant grocery store with all these packs of diapers in different sizes and say I got to do something different. Well, that's something different in my life was to launch a federal government contracting industry, and I started to do that. But I had to keep my day job because I had bills. So I was keeping my day job and I'm doing this at night, and I was working. I was working for this senior executive, and this guy was he was a serial entrepreneur, and he'd go back and forth in between, big business and then, launching his own company. And he'd pop back and forth. The guy was wealthy. He was really successful in his entrepreneurial efforts. And I told him, I said, I'd love to talk to you sometime about, your entrepreneurial efforts. And he says, why? You think about launching a small business or something, Randy? And I said, well, actually, I've already launched one. And he says, okay, are you offering a good or service to anybody? And I said, no, not yet. He says, well, you don't have a company yet. You have a dream. And he says, so let's just get that straight. You don't have and I started talking to him a little bit more about that. And he says, Randy, he says, if I wanted to give you a subcontract right now from our company to your, and I'll tell you the name of the company. It was L3 Titan at the time, L3. And he says, if I wanted to write your contract from L3 to your company, are you even knowledgeable enough to even take it? What price would you charge me? You know what I mean? You have to work that up. You have to show your pricing. Can you even validate your pricing to us as being, reasonable and realistic? And he started to go, do you know how to hire an employee? Do you know how to do payroll tax? He started asking me all of these different things. And here I am. I'm saying, no. And so the deal is there's, once you break this industry down into discrete learning objectives, I need to learn how to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. Then I can take work. Until then, someone can't even gift me a subcontract because I wouldn't be able to take it. I wouldn't be able to staff it. I wouldn't be able to invoice. So there's a handful of things you need to know how to do.
Foundation.
But identifying what those discrete things are demystifies launching a company, and now makes it, a series of action items on a to-do list. And that is doable. That's easy. Everybody, if somebody says, give me the to-do list, give me the action item list, and I'll go through it methodically and start, Xing things off. And, and that's what that's how federal government is a little bit different. Federal government, you can actually do that with. You can convert, you can transfer what's can be vague, almost guessing in one industry to discrete action items in the federal government contracting industry. Because here, let me share my screen. I'm going to talk about something real. Present.
I was hoping you're going to touch on that, the legal portion, the legal perspective of how this works. That speaks to the opportunity, right? It's what you're describing now, but that is a real big deal. I didn't know that until you and I started talking. High probability it's the same for others.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, well, here's a little bit about me, and this is I'd like to share this right here, because everybody thinks small business and small business set-asides are all small. They're not. They are not. These logos right here are my babies one way or another. These are the headlines that I captured off Washington Technology. Washington Tech is like the Wall Street Journal for the federal government contracting industry. These are the ones that they posted. They posted some of our wins and not all of, not others. Who knows why? But these were the ones that were still, findable, on a Google search. So I posted them up there. 96.5 million, 50 million, 30 million, 79 million. These are all massive contracts. Any one of these things just made you wealthy as a small business owner. Any one of them, and there were a lot of others. There's, my very first prime contract was a $15 million one. I maintained that to over a 30% profit margin, and I cleared $5 million off of that first prime contract. And I was my only employee at that point. I had zero revenue coming in, and I won a $15 million prime contract that produced over $5 million in income for my family, just on that contract alone. So small business set-asides are not small. They can be small, but not all of them. So I've been featured in Inc. 500 fastest growing, companies lists on multiple occasions, the Washington Tech Fast 50 list. Been invited to a few CEO symposiums and founder symposiums, and my family's nonprofit organization was recognized by the George H.W. Bush Points of Light Award. However, this is my real credibility, and that is I have screwed up just countless times. I have stepped on more landmines in the entrepreneurial minefield than I care to remember. And because the deal is one failure that's going to take you about a month to overcome is worth more than 25 months of preparing to avoid that one mistake. So it is a lot more efficient to fail fast. Jump in, figure out what it is that you don't know, because you will immediately know what you don't know, or learn what you don't know by launching a company and having it fail. And then you go back and you create your to-do list. So what I try to do is I try to help you avoid those failures and going back to the drawing board, over and over and over, by just telling you where a lot of these landmines are. But why the federal government contracting industry? Everybody says, well, Randy, what you're doing is you're giving us, bad statistics. You're saying, when I keep on talking about growing budgets, $1 trillion annual budgets, and they keep on growing hand over fist, they're going to say, well, yeah, that's because of inflation and because of of our population growth. That's all baloney. Well, these right here, this graph too that you're seeing right here, this is federal spending over time in consistent dollars. It's all been adjusted for inflation, and it's per person in the United States per capita. And it is growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And everybody says, yeah, but look at those dots. This is a dated chart. This it's projected through 2018, which is, several years ago. Believe it or not, this dot that shows projection is off. The actual number, I think our last budget was like $7 trillion. It's almost vertical. It didn't grow at that angle. It grew almost vertically. That's how much spending we're doing. So it is crazy the amount of money that we're spending. Now, this is what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about the Small Business Set-Aside Program. And I like to use this example because I think it nails it really, really well. Really, really well. Let's pretend that you want to launch a fast food restaurant. So you go and you hire New Guys Burgers. You launch New Guys Burgers, and you find a place. You buy a building. You fit it out with all your cooking and cleaning supplies. You turn it into a restaurant. You get all the infrastructure that you need. You pass all the inspections that you got to pass, and you hang your shingle out there, and you're selling your New Guys Burgers. Well, then you just, for the first time, decide to look down the street, and you say, "Holy shit! A McDonald's just opened. My gosh, horrible luck, man!" And then you start, to sweat, and you're worrying like, how many kids are going to be telling their parents to forego that Happy Meal at McDonald's to try out New Guy Burgers that they never heard of? And it is like terrifying because now I'm competing. New Guys Burgers is competing against some of the largest, most entrenched companies in the world. However, now let's pretend that the fast food restaurant industry had the same type of small business set-aside program that the federal government does. What does that mean? Well, this is what it means. That means that this sad Ronald McDonald would be sitting out in front of his restaurant, diverting 23% of his customers from McDonald's to New Guy Burgers. 23% would have to go to, he would say, "No, we can't do business with you. You got to go down to New Guys Burgers." So they would be diverting 23% of their business to us. But it gets even better than that. Every single time a bus comes in or during rush hour, they've got to share some of their just vast revenue opportunity with small businesses. So that means that 39.43% of their rush hour traffic, they have got to give to us. So we actually get to make Big Macs and McDonald's French fries under their logos and give it to them, where we're actually profiting off of 39.43%. 29.43%, nearly a third of their rush hour traffic. Think about that. That is a game changer. That doesn't exist. It's ludicrous to think that something like that exists out in the real world, out in the commercial sector. It does not, but it does in the federal government. So everybody thinks that Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and all these big companies are getting all of the work from the federal government. That is not the case. Let's take a look at. I think these are 2020 dollars, and it's actually increased a lot. But let's just go back because I haven't did the data since 2020. But in 2020, $13.6 billion were awarded to hub zones, historically unutilized business zone companies. $13.6 billion that year. Service disabled veteran-owned small businesses, they got $23.9 billion in prime contracts in 2020. 8A, which are minority-owned companies, they got $59 billion in prime contracts in 2020. That means that these were contracts. When I say they're set-aside contracts, that means that only that particular type of set-aside could bid on. So they're guaranteed to have that type of company win. Women-owned small businesses, $27 billion in prime contracts. And again, those are opportunities that only women-owned small businesses could bid on. So they were guaranteed to have a women-owned small business prime. Then there's $22 billion went to other small businesses that didn't fit these categories. Now, that's just in prime contracts. But did you remember when I said that, there's also a subcontracting set-aside goal? Well, that means that 29.43% of all of these full and open large contract awards, they've got to have a small business set-aside contracting plan where they give that 29.43% to, and they have to divide it up. So HubZone's got $4.2 billion in subcontracts. SDVOSB, they got $5.5 billion in subcontracts. 8A got $11.2 billion in subcontracts. Women-owned small businesses got $14.3 billion. And then other small businesses got $47.6 billion in small business subcontracts. If you add up the percentage, 40.8% of the federal government awardable budget went to small businesses. 40.8% of the awardable budget. That is massive. Now, let's take a look at the real opportunities. Now, again, this is a little dated. I think this is 2020 data, or maybe it's 2021. Each government agencies that fall underneath the small business set-aside purview, they've got to meet both prime and subcontracting small business goals. Now, these are the 24 agencies that fall underneath that. Commerce, DHS, Defense, Energy, Justice, Labor, Transportation, Education, EPA, GSA, Health and Human Services, HUD, Interior, NASA, NRC, NSF, Office of Personnel Management, SBA, SSA, Social Security, State, Treasury, USAID, USDA, and the VA. They all fall underneath the purview of the small business set-aside program. If you look here, some noticeable omissions include a lot of the intelligence agencies like CIA. If they're standalone like CIA, NSA, and the reason why is because a lot of those, a lot of the names of these contracts are highly classified, and they've convinced Congress that some of their procurements are so unique that it's just not appropriate for them to be held to a small business set-aside, requirement. So they miss that. However, there's a lot of the intelligence community that falls underneath the Defense, Department of Defense. For example, like Office of Naval Intelligence. NGA is actually a defense agency. And, so a lot of the intel falls under the small business set-aside program under defense. The point I want to show here is that in 2020, there were only 3 agencies that met all of their prime and subcontracting goals. They were Labor, EPA, Interior. That's it. Every single one of these, every other one, 21 out of 24, they couldn't meet all of their small business set-aside goals. Now, the government still gave themselves an A because they get to grade their own homework. Go figure. But if you look at this, every single one of these gold colored cells are areas where they missed their small business set-aside goals. Notice how many there are in their subcontracting goals. And the reason why that is because these large businesses, when they compete, they need to win. And, risk is one of the largest the largest variable that they're evaluated against. And if they bring on risky hub zones and SDVOSB companies and 8A and women-owned small businesses, in many cases, they make a judgment decision. They say, well, it is better for us to take a hit for not getting the maximum small business set aside score than it will be for us to bring on risky small businesses and have a really poor risk management, rating. So they make that business decision to do that because they can't find enough qualified low risk small businesses to give the earmark to. Think about what I just said. 21 out of 24 government agencies could not find enough low risk small businesses of various types to give the full earmark to. They left tens of billions of dollars in small business earmarks on the table. That should make you excited, because if you become a very mature small business and you target these agencies that cannot find enough of them, then you are going to do a lot of great and wonderful things. So that's why I wanted to share with you the value of the small business set-aside program. It would be so easy for the government to say, we don't want to deal with small businesses because there is inherent risk with dealing with a smaller business rather than a Northrop Grumman or an IBM. However, they also know of the value that small businesses provide our companies. Now I'm going to give you a perfect example. I'm going to give you my company. In 2015, my company was awarded this really large contract to redo the Navy's manpower readiness enterprise and add to it the reserve component. So now that was in 2015. 20 years earlier, the only companies, there was probably about 5 companies that they ever would have considered giving, that award to 20 years earlier. And, those were, IBM, General Dynamics IT, that caliber of company. Fast forward 20 years, with a very successful small business set aside program where we could have experience and lower level, projects and contracts, and we could build up our competencies and so on and so forth. Now, all of a sudden you have a small business that could do that, task for literally a third to a half less than what IBM or Northrop Grumman would have charged. That is the value that small business contracting gives to the federal government and the taxpayer. So that's what I wanted to share. I wanted to share with you, not only is it a great deal for small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking for an industry to launch their company, it's also good for the federal government. They save money when they give it to small businesses. That 29.43% that they force these big companies to subcontract to, if a small business can do part of that contract, they're doing it for much less than what the big company would charge for it, because we don't have the same amount of overhead. So I just wanted to share that, share that with you there, Jonathan, and our audience. It's the value of that small business set aside program. It is the gift that keeps on giving. It is that one of many, but it is the big one that really discriminates this industry from the others. So,
oh my gosh. And that's the seed that we're trying to plant on this one to grow these government contracting trees, right? Like to inspire these people to get out of there. It's illegal. The government's legally required to give you money. You just got to meet the legal requirements, where Randy said, to meet it, to enable them to give you the money.
That's right.
That's a pain. It's you're right. There's hassles there, but it's all administrative hassles, like doing
they are administrative. Right? Many of them are administrative. People always say, but Randy, I'm not a minority. I'm not a woman, and I'm not a service disabled vet. What am I going to do? I don't, I'm saying, like, well, that's okay. Those are 3 things that you can't really control. You can't control, your gender. You can't control, your ethnicity, and you can't control, whether or not you served and was disabled in the military. When you're my age, you can't go back and change those things, not unless you want to do a gender, a gender change operation or something like that. But the one set aside category that you can control, because it pertains to your company and not to the demographics of the owner, and that is hub zone, historically underutilized business zone companies, and those companies are the hardest to find. They really are, and it's really easy to become a hub zone when you're an ultra small company. It really is. The two main requirements are you need to have an office, in a hub zone designated space, which could be literally a closet, in the back of somebody else's building that's actually located in a hub zone. And then the other thing is you need to have, I think, 35% of your workforce be a hub zone resident. So what does that mean? That means that if you're a one-person company launching, you go out there and you find a hub zone resident and you hire them for 40 hours a month, not week. 40 hours a month is all it takes, not week. That's the requirement. 40 hours a month of employment at minimum wage. So you pay somebody minimum wage for 40 hours a month, and now 50% of your workforce are hub zone residents because it's just you and your hub zone employee. And that is how you become a hub zone. It's just that simple. And they can't find enough hub zones to give, to give the work to. But there's plenty of hub zones out there, but I'm talking about low risk that can demonstrate corporate maturity. And
oh my gosh, Randy, do you mind if I jump in with a personal
absolutely.
story? Like, I'm married because of what we're talking about right now. Well, first off, contextually, so I'm using StreamYard, and today was the first time we were going to stream to multiple platforms at the same time. I was just messing around with it. It is not streaming to LinkedIn right now. I'm receiving some sort of error. They say it's on the LinkedIn side. So, Randy, we are streaming to Facebook for the first time ever, and looks like a ton of people are watching. Which amplifies, coincidentally, maybe divine intervention amplifies the hub zone portion, right? Like Justina, if you are watching, what Randy just described is why I picked up the phone and invited you out for coffee, because her office was in a hub zone. Right?
If you have an office in a hub zone, or if you're a one-person company, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur and you live in a hub zone, oh my gosh, you're already done. You can count your home as your home office. And now you're your only employee and you reside in a hub zone, so you have that, and then plus your office, your home office resides in it. So for people who reside in a hub zone designated area, this is a no-brainer. It is a 100% no-brainer, because there's approximately 140,000 small businesses in the United States. Think about this, and you should. Let me finish my statement. There's 140,000 small businesses that are registered to do business with the federal government, that they've gone through all the wickets in order to be able to do work with them. 140,000. There's about 5,000 hub zones. So if you want to go from 140,000 to 5,000 competitive field, become a hub zone. Become a hub zone. If you really want to become competitive, get one ISO certification. Now you're down to 50. Only 50 hub zones out of that 5,000 have ISO certification. If you really want to limit your competitive field, get 2 ISO certifications, and now all of a sudden you can count these people on your fingers and toes that are peer competitors. And when I say the federal government can't find enough, hub zones, qualified hub zones to do the work, what I mean by that is I'm talking about low risk hub zones that can demonstrate corporate maturity. And if you get if you get ISO credentials, it's like college degrees for your company that demonstrates your corporate maturity. You have to have roles and responsibilities defined. You've got programs like risk management programs and customer satisfaction programs. You are one of the top 1% most mature companies in the United States, if you have ISO certification. So that's how you do it. It really is. I just gave away the gazillion dollar strategy. Get a hub zone and get some corporate credentials after your name. And Government Contracting Academy, my company, that's what we do. We help people learn the industry. We help people get those ISO certifications, and we what we do here. Let me show you. I'm gonna jump back on to share screen because I want to show you a picture. Let's go back to here because here's the game. The game is you want to, you want to differentiate your company as much as you can. So if you were a small business and let's say you did IT work, you could either do it for Walmart or you could do it for the USS Ford, public sector build program. If you're trying to do work with Walmart, guess what you're doing? You're competing against IBM, Palo Alto Networks. You're competing against CACI, Deloitte, Accenture, all those big time consulting companies and technology companies. We are talking about you're competing against the who's who and the S&P 500. But if you want to pursue the federal government contracting industry, wow, there's less than 5% of your competitors that pursue federal government contracts. So you're not competing against all the competitors in the US and probably globally to get that Walmart gig. You're only competing against government contracting companies, 5% of your natural competitors. However, as a small business, you're not even competing against the big companies in the federal government contracting industry like Northrop Grumman and IBM and Lockheed Martin. You're only competing against other small and new businesses. But it gets even better. You can choose to only compete and pursue, contracting opportunities for your specific set aside. For example, SDVOSB or a hub zone. You can always become a hub zone. However, it gets better than that. Not everybody who's a hub zone is going to be doing what it is that you do. So you're only competing against the hub zone or SDVOSB competitors that do what it is that you do. Gets even better than that. If you have a discriminator like ISO, boom, you're down to a number of competitors that that you can count with your fingers and toes. You really can't. And that is how you win work, is by you keep on getting discriminators and getting and targeting markets and opportunities and procurements where you are eliminating competitors. And the more competitors that you eliminate, the higher your probability of success is. And that's the game that you should be playing, is how do you make yourself as unique as you can. And on my very first prime contract award, I was pursuing government work. I was an SDVOSB. I was doing something that was rather niche, operations research, and I had discriminators, and that was required. Next thing you know, there were only 7 bidders on this $15 million contract. I had a 1 in 7 chance of becoming a multimillionaire. 1 in 7, because I used that strategy to reduce my competitive field.
That is the big deal. Out of all the things to take away, that one right there, right? Because that speaks to the legal formalities or the administrative type strategy. Yeah.
Oh, that's totally it. Yeah, that is the game you play. That is the game you play. Well, that's ultimately the game you play. That's what you want to do. Now, the first game you're going to be playing is you're going to be trying to get subcontracts. So when you try to get subcontracts, you want to become one of these set-aside companies that companies who are looking for contracts, and one of the agencies that they just can't find enough of them in. So if you're a hub zone,
and they're legally obligated to find.
That's right. That's right. So if you're a hub zone, what you'll want to do is let me share the screen. Let me show you how bad some of the numbers are. Now, admittedly, the numbers have gotten better because there's more focus, which is a good thing, on small businesses. So the numbers are trending, better, but there's still a shocking amount of agencies that are embarrassingly, missing their goals. HHS is the one that I like to highlight. HHS is either the second or third largest funded agency in our federal government usually. And let's see how well they're doing in their subcontracting world for HubZone. 0.6. Now, again, this is supposed to be 3%. So they're meeting 1/5 of their subcontracting goals. So what do? Well, you start Googling until you find who all the big time contract holders are, the big companies are in HHS. Who's doing the most work in HHS? And then you start targeting their business development executives. And you say like, hey, I'm a HubZone. And I'm not just a HubZone. I'm a very mature HubZone that can bring corporate credentials to your bid effort to help you win. We've got ISO credentials, ISO 9001 quality management system certification. And then what you do is you start targeting those business development executives from companies who do work in HHS. And they're going to say, oh my God, where have you been my entire life? And that's how you get teaming agreements, by targeting those business development executives in companies that are supporting agencies where they just have a horrific track record at meeting their set aside goals. So I wish I could say it was a lot more difficult than that, but that's the strategy. The strategy is easy. Now the execution, it takes a ton of effort, but it's effort based. You don't have to guess. There's nothing mythical about it. I tell people one of the best overlooked aspects of the federal government is it's you don't have to guess. There's no guessing in federal government contracting. In every other industry, you've got to guess about what the customer wants or what they're willing to buy. Not this industry. This industry right here, they tell you exactly what they want. They'll even tell you 7 years in advance. It's a 7-year-long budget. We budget out for 7 years. So it's coming 7 years from now. So by the time it's the current budget year, they even do one better, and they release a request for proposal. They provide in excruciating detail what it is that they want. All you got to do is write a proposal that comes closest to their requirements. It's just no different than taking a tail and putting it on a donkey. Just pin the tail on the donkey. Write your proposal, your tail, that's closest to the donkey's rear end. And the good thing about it is there's on average about 29,000 donkeys walking around at any given time. There's 29,000 opportunities, requests for proposals at any given time in various stages of solicitation. So you get to pick and choose the donkey that's closest to you and what it is that you do in order to put your tail on it. So again, the strategy is simple once you figured it out. Now, I want to say how easy it was. It took me 8 years to figure it out. It took me 8 years to figure what I just set out. 8 years. Because I thought like, hey, I'm pretty good at something, and I'm sure I'm going to have people lining up just to give me subcontracts. Did not happen. That did not happen. I didn't realize that, that these companies, they're subcontracting not with me, but with an entity that I created. And that entity had 0 credentials. 0. It had a blank resume. So what value was that blank resume going to add to their bid? And the answer to that is 0. So once I kind of figured out that I had to add value, my company had to add value to their bid effort, I started thinking about getting set-asides like SDVOSB, and started thinking about getting credentials like ISO 9001, CMMI Level 3 appraisal, and so on. Once I did that, the whole world changed for me. And I went on a win spree where I won nearly $400 million in prime contracts.
Oh my gosh. We are in our last 1 minute and 15 seconds here. You just touched on a real big deal, the separation between individual and corporate, or the corporate credentials or whatnot. That kind of broke my mind, and high probability, especially since we're streaming on Facebook, that's going to be a thing our audience hasn't thought about yet. Like, you as an individual are not sellable. You're not worth, nobody's going to buy you.
Yeah, that's right. They can't buy you. They can only work with your country. They can only contract with your company. They can't contract with you, personally. Well, they can, but your company is never going to grow, because then you're selling your time. That'll never work, to create wealth. You gotta create an entity that, that's valuable. And then you just keep on staffing your entity up to do more and more and more and more work. And that's how you create wealth.
Last 20 seconds here, Randy. Final thought.
My final thought is that federal government contracting, simple strategy. Once you figure it out, and then the second thing is a lot of hard work, but that's what it is. It's just hard work.
Sure.
If you can do the work, you're going to become, you're going to create revenue and create wealth.
Generational wealth.
That just generational wealth. Yeah, it's a numbers game at that point. Submit enough proposals, solicit enough subcontracting opportunities from business development executives. You're going to be successful, guaranteed.
Oh my gosh, that's a great way to end it. Holy cow, what a great episode! We're going to do it again next week. It's getting better and better. This is a perpetual motion, just faster and faster, bigger and bigger. Yeah, awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, Randy. I'll see you again next week.
You bet, buddy. Oh, hey, can you tell people about Thursday, Tuesday opportunities.
Oh my gosh. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. That is we are doing. Oh my God, I haven't worked up a spiel for Tuesday.
Well,
yet.
you want me to? I'll tell you.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm starting to do. So what we're going to be doing starting next Tuesday is we're going to have a training series. It's going to be a 4-webinar series every Tuesday at noon, where I'm going to walk you through the nuts and bolts of how to launch a federal government contracting company. It's going to be quick and dirty. There's four webinars, 4 weeks. And like I said, it's going to be the quick and dirty of how to get your fishing line in the water. It's not going to be politically, I'm just going to tell you exactly what's needed to be done. And now that's not to say that you're going to know everything you need to know in order to be able to grow and scale your company, but it's good enough to get your fishing line in the water to where you are now available to make some money. Oh, and so that's what we're starting to do next Tuesday at noon Eastern.
Next Tuesday, I will post across the internet.
Okay.
It'll be available. Oh my gosh, we are at time. This was awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll see you all next week. And it's ending.